They call you Kate or Wolf?
Either one works.
Okay,
Yeah, it
perfect.
really doesn't matter. Whatever you prefer. But it looks like
Nice.
we are live. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Wolf. Welcome to another podcast. We're actually going to be diving deep into the world of DePIN. Today, I have the founder of GLIF, CEO John Schwartz. GLIF is the largest DeFi protocol on the largest DePIN network. So I'm really excited to chat with him and all things that are going in the DePIN world. John, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely, man. We've had different spaces actually, so it's not the first time we've talked. So I've got a bit of a brief introduction on you and some of the things you guys are building. But for the people who are unaware, we'd love to get a brief introduction onto what you guys are building. And then I would love to kind of pull that apart a little bit, go deeper into the world of DePIN, why you chose that industry to build in, and sort of your hopes and aspirations for the industry as a whole.
Absolutely. So I think a good first place to start is just to kind of define DePIN and what it is and how it sort of operates at a very superficial level so that I can give you more information about where Glyph comes in and what problems that we solve. So DePIN stands for decentralized physical infrastructure. And essentially DePIN has been around for quite a long time. I say that coming from crypto, but I would say at least from say 2020 onwards. And some folks even call Bitcoin a DePIN network, and the fact that there's all these big computers around the world that are playing a game and coordinating together to secure the Bitcoin blockchain. But generally, folks in DePIN don't love when you call Bitcoin DePIN, so they generally refer to DePIN as a network that is aggregating or collecting different types of resources, namely storage, compute, energy, bandwidth, these types of resources that then can be resold and shared and offered in sort of more robust but also cheaper ways to retail customers. And so DePIN projects in crypto would compete with the likes of AWS and Google Cloud or different phone companies as well. And so it's a really interesting sort of up and coming sector in crypto that allows retail and general folks to get involved just by reusing the hardware that they already have in their home. And so when you think about DePIN and in the context of really a lot of different DePIN networks, the DePIN network makes the hardware owner in certain circumstances put up a stake. And the reason for doing that is to keep that node provider, that node operator honest in what they're doing, right? So in the context of, let's say, storage, I might require a data center to put up some capital. And that way I can basically know that they're going to operate with better sort of quality and honesty and transparency, because if they don't, I have a mechanism to actually slash that node provider and take some of that security deposit. Now, on certain DePIN networks, that security deposit that the node providers are forced to put up can be prohibitively expensive. So you might have a lot of hardware, but you don't have enough capital really to go out, buy some cryptocurrency to then go stake to bring your hardware online to this network. And so that's actually where Glyph comes in. Glyph is a way for node providers who are getting involved with different DePIN networks to secure the capital that they need to put that stake down into their DePIN network, activate their hardware. And on the flip side, token holders of those specific networks now have a mechanism to actually put their tokens to work in the network, earn returns in a way that's productive and sort of healthy for the network as a whole. So you could think of it in sort of, it's a two-sided market, right? There's the liquidity providers, the token holders who put tokens inside Glyph to earn rewards. And on the back end, those tokens are actually deployed to node providers who use them to bring more hardware online into a DePIN network and sort of grow their operation overall. That makes sense? That was a lot. That was a rant.
No, it did, and I also felt the passion oozing from your speech as well. So, what is it about the DePIN network that was so intriguing to you? Was that where you first started in the crypto world? Like, give me some background on yourself as well. I'd love to learn about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my first crypto engineering stint was around 2016, and then I ended up going to work for Consensus in 2017.
Okay.
And
Cool.
did you ever hear of a project called Ujo Music? But I don't, it was really old, and it's
When was
fine if
that?
not. I
Here.
would, 2017, it probably was,
That
yeah,
may have been right
2018.
before my time, actually.
Okay, yeah. So Ujo was interesting in that we were putting all of our artist data on IPFS. And IPFS is the interplanetary file system for anyone who hasn't heard or learned of IPFS, but it was a very early distributed storage protocol that didn't have its own cryptocurrency or anything like that. it just allowed folks to upload files and data into a distributed decentralized storage network and access those files in a more robust way without relying on centralized entities like AWS or Google Cloud. And that helped NFT projects or DAOs or different crypto projects kind of have a solution for data hosting that fit the ethos of crypto, right? So if you're a decentralized project and then you go put all your user data or all this data on AWS or a centralized place, it kind of eats at the narrative of what you're doing, especially in those times when there was a lot of sort of religious sort of loyalty to different crypto paradigms like decentralization. And now I think some of those religious beliefs have they're less strongly held across the sector as a whole, I would say. But that being said, when I learned of IPFS, I was I was convinced this is a very helpful and useful technology. And Filecoin at the time was the incentivized version of IPFS. And I thought, hey, this is actually a really good idea. And so I, long story short, left my job at Consensus and started a IPFS and Filecoin focused development shop. And so I would build all these different custom storage solutions for different crypto protocols at the time. And it was a really fun learning experience. I got to build all sorts of experimental stuff, which was really fun as an engineer. Like that's what you kind of dream of. And then the creators of Filecoin, they're called Protocol Labs. They reached out and said, "Hey, do you want to build the Filecoin wallet for our mainnet launch?" This was Filecoin's launch, and then that led to, "Hey, do you want to build our multi-sig for the launch?" And all these sort of opportunities. And that was actually the birth of GLIF. Was the sort of this interoperable set of apps and tools that we were building for Filecoin's launch. And fast forward a few years later, we built Filecoin's first DeFi protocol, which is like what I told you. It allows the Filecoin token holders to deposit their Filecoin to earn rewards. And the way that they earn rewards is that the protocol deploys that Filecoin to storage providers who use it as a security deposit to bring more hardware online, store more data, and keep growing. And that went exceptionally well. We grew exponentially for like 18 straight months. And now we're basically going to be supporting other DePIN networks as well. And so that's kind of the big inflection point for GLIF and a huge new opportunity for us as a team and a project to keep growing.
Wow, very cool. You never know what's going to happen when you kind of jump into this crypto world. And you jump in, you dive in with passion, you want to work hard, you're like go, go, go mode, and then things develop, and then you go off and start your own project. That is wild. I would love to know, so that was kind of like a bit of your journey there into how you founded GLIF. I'm curious on some of the takeaways, I guess like the biggest takeaways you had in the first couple of years, especially, like maybe some of the trials and tribulations you faced right in the beginning, things you didn't expect. Would love to just hear some more about that.
Absolutely. So I think, and it's a really good question. In my mind, when I was in college, I tried to start an app and raise some money, and that money was used to hire developers. And the takeaway from that first app experience that I had was there's this saying that I've been saying, I don't know if I made it up or I heard it somewhere else, but it's called like be the inventor of your own invention. And what that meant to me at the time was like, if I want to be able to start a business anywhere, I need to be able to make that business myself. I shouldn't have to pay anyone to do it for me. And eventually, as you grow and you scale, you of course need to bring on more teammates, and you can't do all of that on your own. But so the thing for me in the early days of starting GLIF was making sure that we were self-sufficient from the very beginning, right? So we were bootstrapped from grants, not from any sort of investments. And that was how we started building products and getting experience, even to the point of having our own like completely custom made tech stack that we could ship crypto apps really quickly and securely. That then basically gave us an edge when we decided, hey, we want to build our own products now instead of building products in these sort of short-term grants and stuff like that, which is much harder to build a sustainable business around. And so I think that there's a lot of difficulty in transitioning from sort of a development shop into a product, a business that is making its own product, right? And I could go through the weeds of that, and I'm not even sure if that's exactly the question that you're asking. Then there's other problems with like building the DeFi product that we built and kind of pioneering some of that. And I would say the hardest part about the building is, well, I would say two different things. One is that on Filecoin, we have been like the Trojan horse of DeFi. And so when you decide you want to go build a DeFi application, say you're on Ethereum or Arbitrum or Solana or wherever, you have a lot of other composable tools at your disposal that you can use to make better applications quicker. On Filecoin, those things weren't available. And so when certain things that I would take for granted in other ecosystems back, 5 years ago, now we have to build on our own. So we've had to build our own block explorer. We've had to rebuild, event log indexing. We've had to build like pretty much everything that you can think of to, from the bottom up, which has been an amazing learning experience for us, but also timely and costly and tiring. So that's thing one is it's been challenging to build without being able to reuse other primitives that we've been used to having at our disposal. Thing two is that in the time period that we've been operating in crypto, and I think both of us have been around for a while, and narratives and meta arcs kind of change, right? So like when we came out with the DeFi protocol at first, it was bear market. There wasn't much going on. Then the meme coin craze kind of happened, and that what became hard for us is we have built a really strong business fundamentally. Like the protocol generates revenue. It has, at this point with the bear markets, I think the TVL is quite low, but at a certain point with even less total Filecoin in GLIF, we had nearly $500 million in there. And like when you go and you talk to say like an exchange or like someone who's on the token side of things, they don't care in the meme coin economy. So you say, look, we've done, almost $1 billion in volume on the GLIF platform when you go talk to some exchange and they say, oh, nice. Well, like how many Twitter followers do you have? And it's just like that has been a really challenging thing for me to grasp, because for me, I'm an engineer at heart and like a product person. And in the last couple years, I feel like what has made it and worked in crypto is less about sound good fundamental engineering and product building and more around great memes and great marketing, which, don't get me wrong, is also really important. You need to be able to articulate the vision of what you're doing and the future state of the world when your technology becomes abundant and really at scale. But like there needs to be a balance that, like, I feel like there's a yin and yang kind of dance to it, and we missed either the yin or the yang in the last 2 years. And for whatever reason, we decided to do yin, and the market is really appreciating yang, right? So like that had been a challenge, but some of that stuff is largely out of our control, and it doesn't really bother me because I know over long enough periods of time, things that have fundamentally sound designs and are built on really good sort of foundations are going to win out more often than not. So I think that's I'm not even sure that really answered your question, but hopefully close.
No,
but feel free to re-ask.
Well, I think especially for people who are trying to build in this industry, I remember like I first came in during like the NFT craze, and that was what initially drew me in. I was like, oh, like brand building, great, sounds so cool. You can make the next Superman, like maybe we'll be birthed in this whatever era this is going to be called, metaverse, all these words. And I remember like a lot of those founders would put this roadmap, like all the community members wanted this. And then by the time it was like ready to deliver, nobody wanted it anymore. And they were like, how am I supposed to win? Like I want this, and then 6 months later they want that, and I've lost now that I try to give them what they wanted. And so it's very difficult for the founders. And so I've had for a lot of founders who are building in the industry are like, dude, I feel that.
Yeah. And it's a funny analogy is like, I go back to the wacky whack inflatable tube man. That like the blow up thing is like,
yep.
Like as a founder, especially in crypto, you want to stay as far away from being that as you can. and it's really easy to get blown in the wind in crypto. And especially if you're really active on X or Twitter or Farcast or wherever you are, the loudness of the opinions of random strangers that you don't even know, half of which are maybe paid for actors or something like that. Like it becomes very difficult to think clearly and stay strong on conviction that you have, even when the market is doing things that it makes no sense, right? Like you can't, I can't rationally come up with a thesis as to why Fartcoin becomes the next big thing, but like given that is the case, I should not be changing my strategy to go be more like Fartcoin, right? Like that's how I die. So like stick to like really think first principle, get off of Twitter unless you're using it to like find white papers and like primary research. And once you have conviction, go see it all the way through and verify if it's going to work or not by the narrative or what's currently cool, because folks who defy the narrative end up making the next one, right? So you don't want to be late to you don't want to be the last person jumping on a narrative train, because that's when you end up being the wacky whack inflatable tube man. You have a fragile business and then you end up dying. Yeah.
That's great advice for a lot of people, because that's what they're looking for. They don't have the runway. So like, I guess I have to just hop on this Bitcoin thing and drop this token. So
right.
yeah, that's great insights there. And I love that the GLIF token is not just solely focused on like trading value, but rewarding lenders and source providers for participating in DePIN. That's also just generally what I like about the DePIN network. It's not just focused in on trading volume and a lot of things, literally exactly what we just talked about here. So I'd love if you could dive into a little bit more of the utility of GLIF token, especially for people who are like, okay, cool, I like the project, I like the guy, I like what he's talking about. What is the token?
Oh, absolutely. A great transition. Like, I'm glad you asked this now. And I just to preface this, like I have an issue with, like, I wouldn't say revenge, but or like maybe the right term is like whiplash. So like once in the last 2 years, the advice that has been given to me is like, oh, go hire certain people to go talk about your token and go do these pay exchanges, huge sums of money to get somewhere for what. Yeah. Our team was like, let's go against the grain, run 180-degree opposite way, because that does not feel right. And it's like, we're not creating real value. And so like our goal was, can we create something that will be useful without talking about it, actually? And so like, I'm glad to talk about it, and we will be talking about it, and we have to talk about it to boost it. But at the fundamental level, when you think about something like United Airline miles or Chipotle rewards, I go back to these things all the time, or Chase points or whatever. They do advertise those things a little bit, right? Like you see maybe, oh, if you book this trip through now, you'll get an extra Chase point or whatever. But realistically, in order for, let's get away from Chase points and more into like Chipotle or airline miles. For like, those loyalty programs are only effective insofar as people want to fly and people want to eat Chipotle, right? If like the current state of crypto is, you create an outline of a picture of Chipotle and you're like, this is going to make burritos. And if you talk about us now, we'll give you points so that you can get free burritos in the future. And we're like, but we don't even know how good your burritos are, man. Like, how do I know that I want that? And so for us, we're really determined to create similar types of programs where we can have very, very clear feedback right away. Are we building products that people want or not? And so we've modeled this very similarly to Chipotle rewards or airline miles, in the sense that like, we are going to sell products out of GLIF that are priced in GLIF tokens. And when you buy those products, it's not a stake to receive a feature. You are going to spend your GLIF tokens to go receive this product. And so those products, the stuff that we're working on, they're not out quite yet, and they're taking longer. So here I am shitting on people memeing things to life as I'm currently doing it. But the concept there is, for the liquidity providers, can we offer products like insurance or reward boosts, things of that nature, that are really like actual valuable products to a liquidity provider, not things that we think are valuable, like that these liquidity providers are willing to give up, potentially burn their tokens to go get this from the GLIF store. And on the borrowing side, we basically are going to be working with different interest rate discount mechanisms. And so those are the products for the borrowers. And then there will be a bunch of other products, maybe some fun products that will get thrown in there. Like you could buy a hot tub with GLIF points or something. I don't know, something pool related. Right. Yeah. But like just a little bit of silliness and games, because like that we're all here to have a little bit of fun. Sure. But I think that the thing here is the big takeaway is that I think there's been a lot of talk, especially with William and other folks in DePIN, about buy and burn as a mechanism for a token model. And I've been pretty unimpressed with buy and burn in a way, because I don't like, I think a lot of times people in crypto like to make up new terms for old things. Public companies, if we compare, tokens to equities in stock markets, like, which maybe is not a great idea, and they're not like comparable in every way, but like for the idea of buybacks, they're pretty comparable in the fact that like buying back is taking circulation out of the market, right? And so you have public companies with publicly traded equities that oftentimes will buy back their stock, right? But they don't do this in a way that says we're going to take 20% of our revenue and every X day we're just going to buy it no matter what price it's at, right? Like a smart company would realize when your stock is overpriced and actually issue more equity, right? Go sell stock when the price is high, go raise money. And then when it drops down, go buy it back. Like that's good capital management within a public company in my book. Now, like, so for GLIF, we didn't really want to get into this buy and burn cycle where it feels very like there's probably much higher ROI ways to spend revenue, rather than just YOLO buying back tokens at whatever price they're at. And so for us, the onus is actually to put the burn on the users. So in a buy and burn strategy, let's say you have a DePIN network that's collecting a bunch of health data, right? Where we all have a watch on and we are collectively aggregating and, anonymizing our data, but then we go sell this to medical companies, and the revenue that the medical company used to pay is just buying these tokens off the market and burning them. That is like classic buy and burn, in where like the protocol at a network level is earning the revenue, and the protocol at the network level is then also doing the buying and the burning. With GLIF, it's a little bit different in that the network is selling products to the end customers who are actually buying, who are essentially burning the tokens to get those products. So it'd be like if I wore this watch and I was earning tokens for contributing data, but then in order to get my insights, I actually have to spend my tokens to get them. That would be closer to what we do, or what we're trying to pull off, because at that point, let's say I'm wearing this watch and I'm getting watch points or watch tokens, right? Now, my goal is to build a good enough product that people will pay for their insights, right? And if people are not willing to burn these tokens to get those insights, then the insights that we're offering are just simply not good enough, right? Sure. Like if I can, this is like a crazy example, but if this watch could tell you, as long as you keep paying for the insights, it can give you a week's notice whether you're going to get sick or like die or some crazy shit. Right now it would be like, okay, wait, actually, I might be willing to burn my tokens for that feature, right? So like there is a point like where you can cross this chasm into, I've made something so good that my users are willing to depart with my tokens, right? Which is very different from what a lot of crypto companies want to do, which is we want to find ways for users to keep onto their tokens and not spend them and not get rid of them and hold them and stake them, and like all that stuff to me is interesting, but it's crypto financial engineering that isn't actually producing enormous amounts of new value and trying to onboard new types of people. It's perpetuating games, which again, some games you can actually turn into really productive outcomes, right? But other times I think it's just a game. And that's how I feel we can differentiate our token from a lot of what's out there in DeFi. And I think I'm really excited to keep pushing that forward. Again, I'm being a hypocrite because none of these products are out yet, but hopefully in the next few months we'll publish the first at least one and see how it goes. And again, those products might fail, but that's good, right? Because then we know, okay, let's discontinue trying to sell that service and let's go work on another one. And that's how we'll know. And once we do find one, you better bet like if GLIF and our GLIF store is offering products that are good enough to get our token holders to give up their tokens for good to get these products. Now, like I'm saying, we are in a very, very strong position with this token because people want it to get these products. And so now we have a flywheel that the marketing is great because we can market to get more customers and expecting our loyal customers to then go use those tokens to get deeper into the product, right? Just like a loyalty program would do. So it fuses the token with the protocol in a much better way and allows us to stop talking so much about the token and start talking more about the products that we're selling, right? Like I rarely see a Chipotle ad for the points. I see it for the burrito, and the points are great when I'm at checkout. But again, like if without a good burrito, I don't care about the points. So that's kind of what we're trying to do at Glyph. And I think I've hammered that point home probably too many times now.
That's great. And clearly, you're either hungry or you just went to Chipotle. Because now I'm hungry, and I'm in Puerto Rico, so I can't even get Chipotle if I want to now. That's the first place to
Dude, I
go.
just spit on my water. Yeah, I actually am really hungry. But I'm thinking Shake Shack maybe,
Oh,
and I don't think that there's a Shake Shack point program. And so, which might, now I'm kind of disappointed, right?
um,
Like, yeah. So,
honestly,
yeah,
you brought some good points there. And I'll say, like, it's tough with crypto as well. They're a bit less forgiving because I feel like their runway is even shorter than the founders' runways in a lot of times mindset wise. They want to put in $5 and they want to pull out 1 million tomorrow, which is just beyond nothing. I mean, it's so such a small percentage of people ever make that kind of return. It's minuscule. It's absolutely almost impossible. And but it also brings me up that quote from Thomas Edison, where it was like he found 1,000 different ways not to make a light bulb. It was like everything else was just data. And it also brings me another quote from a show called Lost a long time ago. And he was like, I think they were talking about like destiny or something like that, like Final Destiny. And he was like, look, there's one way. He like talked about like the story or life because it ends once. Everything else before that, progress. He's like, there's only one ending. It's like you end life once. Everything else before that is just life and progress. And that's kind of how I think about it here when you were talking. Like you're finding all these different ways. If they work, great. You add it to the rack of things that work, and then now you offer 9 different things that work, and the rest are like, yeah, I didn't want them.
exactly. Yeah, and that honestly is how like I feel like in my own personal experience, any sort of thing that I'm building, whether it's tokens, even not software products, like having ways to throw a bunch of darts at the wall and see what sticks and what doesn't is always the best way. Like the markets are very irrational and people think very differently than I do or than you do. And so when we go and project what we want onto what other people want, a lot of times we're just wrong.
Yeah,
And I've gotten it way more wrong than I've been right. But the one thing, at least for me, I've been right on is like presuming that I'm going to get it wrong. So like not investing too much time or effort or development into one type of model that may not work out. That's how you end up kind of keep pushing a square peg in a round hole, and it's something that's just not going to work. Then you pay for marketing, then but you don't have a strong foundation, and that's like a leaning tower of Pisa in my book. So and I think a lot of the current crypto projects are like that. So it's a hard thing, and a lot of them it's not their fault, right? They're operating in whatever means and constraints that they operate in, and this is just the way it's gone.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would love to zoom out on like the future of like the DePIN industry as a whole and some of the things you're talking about. But what are some of the bigger issues you're looking to have DePIN solve in the industry, in the world, even in the broader crypto world? I do think there's a place, especially depending on if the 4-year cycle plays out, possibility of a looming bear market. There's also a possibility that a lot of people are saying, well, Bitcoin's tracking along with the stock market. Maybe we see a dip, but ultimately we start to get away from these drastic 70% corrections, every few years. And either way, when I first learned about DePIN and real world assets, and I'm like, okay, these seem to be a lot more viable in the real world. I could explain this to my grandfather. He could actually maybe understand this a lot more than he could like a meme coin. And so I was like, okay, these have a chance at actually doing well in a bear market if the product is good and if there's something actually of value here. So I'm curious, for me, I'm looking forward to seeing how DePINs unravel. So I'd love to get your perspective on this. What are some of the issues that you're hoping to be solved? And also, what are the things that you're hoping what's the word I'm looking for? Excited to see, I guess, in the industry as it plays out over the next few years.
Oh yeah, this is a great question and a lot to unpack here. And again, feel free to cut me off whenever if I'm rambling or you want to just ask a question halfway through or whatever. So a few things that you said there that I think are really interesting. One is this like idea of big corrections in crypto assets, and I think this is an important point to think through why that happens, especially for assets like Bitcoin, and try and explain it, and then talk about what are some things that Bitcoin the network could do to stop that from happening, and why is that easier to do in DePIN? Which to answer like a second question is why I think DePIN networks that work well are very much more resistant to bear markets and huge price corrections down. So let's first talk about Bitcoin and the cost structures. So for you to mine Ethereum, right? You barely have to use any fiat dollars. I have to have an internet connection. It doesn't have to be that good. I need some power. Again, it's not like a data center level of power. I can run that from my home here, wherever I am, right? Very low fiat cost expenditures for me to mine Ethereum now with proof of stake. On Bitcoin, proof of work, completely different. I'm running very, very powerful hash mechanisms and trying to guess a lucky number. And that expends a ton of energy. That has huge data centers that are running these things, which takes staff to keep online, security, right? So fiat cost of mining Bitcoin is very, very high. And that's because of the work that you have to put in. So when you're a miner, right, you have to sell Bitcoin that you win from mining to pay your bills. Right? That's the only way that you can sustainably survive. So now, if you think that Bitcoin is going to start plunging down and you're a miner, what are you going to do? You're going to sell as much as you can because you need to make sure that you can survive. So what does that do? That accelerates the price drop. Now this is the negative feedback loop of Bitcoin. It's caused because of the fiat cost structures of being a Bitcoin miner, where Ethereum doesn't have this. Now, we still see huge corrections with Ethereum. And so like I don't think this can be the full story, but this is definitely a story for quick wind down. It's also the same story for wind up, where you need to sell less Bitcoin to pay your bills on the way up. So you hold more, so there's less circulating on the market, more buyers, more price going up, miners sell less, and that keeps it going. So when you get into those cycles, it's really good. But you could tell because of this high fiat cost structure, the volatility of Bitcoin is always going to be up and down. Mm-hmm. Now, there's really companies that are doing this, but if the way to solve this problem for Bitcoin is allow the miners, find a way for the miners to earn fiat revenue while mining Bitcoin. That way, they do not need to sell Bitcoin to cover their fiat costs. So one idea here, which folks are doing, would be actually to like take the heat that's generated from your Bitcoin mining, package it up and resell it. So now I have like basically a heater. And I think there's several folks that are doing this. But the interesting part about this is that now Bitcoin miner A, who's selling the heat that's produced from their mining operation, now has an extra form of dollars coming in, and they can use that to hedge the fiat cost of running this data center. So they need to sell less Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin can be much more stable. So why does this relate to DePIN? Well, DePIN is interesting in that every node provider in that network should be, one, mining the currency in some form, or they are today. But two, they should be, if the DePIN network is working well, earning other revenues that are paid in fiat. So if you look at like decentralized storage or decentralized compute or decentralized energy or any of these DePIN networks, in order for them to survive, they have to sell a product, right? Like they have to be able to sell storage, or else it's not a storage network and that will die. But once they start selling storage, now the folks who are actually storing the data on the network, they can get paid in fiat for that storage. And so now you have the reason that DePINs are interesting is because for the high fiat cost expenditure that sometimes they require for doing extra work, like storing data for customers, using GPUs, you also have an extra revenue source that was harder to sort of get from Bitcoin. And this is all predicated on the fact that DePIN has demand and you have paying customers. Without paying customers, it's the same thing as Bitcoin, right? You have forced sellers because they're doing all this work with a lot of high fiat costs. And now when the price starts to go down, they have to sell more. And now it's just going to keep falling and falling. So the interesting thing here is like DePIN, from a meme perspective, represents a much less volatile crypto economy because it's selling real services to folks. But in order for that to work, DePIN needs a lot more demand and volume and sales. And right now, I think there's a few companies in DePIN that really say that they have a lot of revenue, but it's unclear yet how real is it? Who's it coming from? How, like, is it sticky revenue? Is it going to disappear somewhere else? Like, so yeah, I think that's kind of why DePIN has great promise. It also makes great sense for a lot of people. Like Uber and Airbnb are kind of like DePIN networks, right? They just are not built on blockchains, and they have corporations that get a lot of the revenue there. But they're not much different from some other kind of network, and they work great, right? So, yeah, I think why is it great? Generates revenue. What does it need to do? Generate a lot more demand first, and then we can start talking about how good this will be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious too on your thoughts on how we can get exactly that. How do we get people? And is it the what you mentioned earlier, build better products, or is it because like there's a bunch of people out there? You know, we talk to, I'm sure you are as well, just talking to tons of people who are building in this industry of crypto, and most people have a similar issue. It's like we got some products, we got some cool things to offer, we can't find the people who want them. We know there's a market here. We just need to figure out how to get it in front of the right people with the right pitch, the right offer. I'm curious on your thoughts on how we make that happen.
Yeah, well, it's a great question, and I think there's tons of different strategies, right? So one is just being having better salespeople and having better, easier tools. Like it's basically like any business has a sales pipeline, and so right now we're talking about like how do we optimize conversions in the pipeline. So like one is just generating awareness, like how much of the world understands that these things can operate for them. Two would be is if you're aware of it, is it actually solving a problem that you care to solve, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm storing my data and running compute on Amazon and I'm really happy and I don't care about the costs and I'm not scared they're going to shut me out, that person is not a customer for DePIN right now, unfortunately. Now, if I see someone who's like I can barely afford my AWS bill, they cut me off every now and again because we're storing some OnlyFans data or something, or even things that like you would store that were totally fine, but say like China doesn't allow them or some other jurisdiction, like just sort of weird censorship that can go on. Now we have a customer. Okay, so like we need to go find more of those types of people. Where are they living? Like, why have we not found pockets of them? And again, that's like we're talking about storage and compute, but this exists for like bandwidth, energy, so many different types. And so I don't think there's a one size fits all answer to that question. I think it's like
Yeah.
per kind of DePIN type or resource that you're collecting. Now, uh, once you get down to the very bottom, you start to get to the can we actually pull this off in a way that's as good as AWS or Google Cloud or whatever the comparable thing is? And
Yeah.
a lot of times it's not there quite yet. Um, so like Filecoin, for instance, in a lot of ways has a lot of very, very good features that you can't get from AWS. But if you just want to use S3, you're going to have a lot harder of a time using Filecoin. It's not there
Yeah.
yet. There's other teams that have built on Filecoin, but they're not quite there yet either, I would say, to be at par with AWS. And that's a hard battle, right? Like you're battling a 30-year, 20-year business and
Yeah.
tons of money. And so that's one thing is just like standard pipeline optimization, which every business has to do. I think we could do more of those in crypto and not be so insular and trying to impress the folks on other blockchains that are like just already in the crypto world. The second thing
Mhm.
is, and this is interesting, is like again, I think that there's no net good or net bad technology in my book. So I go back to meme coins here because I think there's a lot of really good things about meme coins. Like on one hand, I think meme coins are potentially like the most, in some ways, intellectually honest token in crypto. Like if you lose money on a meme coin, you have no one but yourself to blame. So like if you lose money on someone's thing that looks like an AI project that was really just a meme coin, now actually like
Mhm.
that's kind of fucked up from that project to
Right.
kind of be
Right.
intellectually dishonest about what their project does. So I'm like I'm gonna say some bad things about meme coins, but in my book they're not like there are arguments on the other side. But the thing for me is guilty by association. So you have both very serious builders in crypto that can create technology that is far better than what exists out there. But they're when you look at that class of crypto, they're right next alongside to the developers who build shit coins and things that have no purpose, no value. In a lot of ways, they're harmful or destructive, or like in the worst case, they're like really offensive or scams or rug pulls. And so when you're a serious business, an enterprise doing 50, $100 million a year in revenue, and you look at a crypto project that says they can save you $10 million a year in costs because they can distribute the resources across this global network of things, and how like the bar of trust that you have to create as a salesperson on the other side of that is way higher because now this person who may not know that much about crypto is like, is this a rug pull? Like, how does this work? Like, you know what I mean? And now, like, if we didn't have that here, I think we'd be a lot further along in adoption because people would take us more seriously. We like when we play silly games as an industry, it's hard to get away from the fact that, hey, we're doing serious things here too. Stable coins, I think, are like a Trojan horse for that, where it's like, hey, programmatic movement of money is extremely, extremely helpful and is like 100 to 1,000 times better in my book than what we've been seeing with banks. So like there you start to see it, right? You have the Stripe acquisition of Bridge. These are real things that now it starts to someone who's thinking about, hey, should I use that stable coin and this DePIN network to do? Now we have a better chance. But like when the things in the news and the things that drive people's attention are just pumping fake money and not creating real value and pushing the limits of the tech, it just makes everything else harder. And so I think that's another factor that is here that's uncontrollable by certain DePIN founders as well.
Yeah, those are great points in there actually, and it's actually a nice segue for this next question here. So for people who are interested, they're like, okay, cool. Well, actually, first off, if you could outline like the specific target audience that you're looking to get with GLIF, that you're like, I think you guys would actually find a lot here that we're offering. Who would that be? And then also for those people, if they're like, oh, that's me, how do they learn more about GLIF? How can they deposit the Phil token into GLIF and start earning those rewards?
Absolutely. So I think we are in what we're calling chapter 3 of GLIF. So chapter 1 was like help launch Filecoin. Chapter 2 was like build the first DeFi protocol for Filecoin and scale that. And now chapter 3 is the expansion where we're supporting other DePIN networks and DePIN asset sets. And that's why we've been calling GLIF now like DeFi for DePIN, very generically. We want to go and help solve capital efficiencies for other DePIN networks. And so who are the audience members that we're targeting? Well, both if you are a token holder of a DePIN network and you can't earn rewards or you haven't been earning rewards with your tokens because you have no way to actually like get the hardware, you have no desire to run the hardware, GLIF is essentially democratizing access to DePIN mining. And so if you are a token holder of one of those DePIN networks, hit us up because we're looking for the right networks to support next. And the more demand that we have for particular networks, the faster we'll go and incorporate it. So that's on the like liquidity providing investor side. On the borrowing side or the DePIN mining side, same question. If you're already mining DePIN networks and they require some form of stake and you have more hardware than you have the money to buy tokens to stake or like the demand to like hold on to this token and take all the price exposure, GLIF can support that network and help you grow your operation and bring more hardware online without buying those tokens. And so those are both parties there are really important for us. And for any network that we support, you need to balance both sides. You can't have one without the other. So if you're any DePIN enthusiast, a miner, a token holder, a speculator, whoever you are, hit us up at GLIF.io. You can DM me on Twitter. My Twitter is here in the name at J_Schwartz with 2 Z's. And yeah, the first network that we are supporting and definitely one of our favorites, and we love Filecoin so much and have been here for a while. If you are a Filecoin token holder or a Filecoin miner, those markets are up. They're very, very mature. You can go to GLIF.io, our website, and you can deposit Filecoin right into the pool and start earning rewards. You can also borrow Filecoin as a miner right from the website. So those are both 2 ways to get involved. And we're especially excited to learn more about the other DePIN networks and get any sort of demand that sort of a temperature check there.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder, are there any projects where you're like, we need this now, it's just not being made? You guys have plenty on your plate, but you're like, man, this would be nice. The company came out and just got this done right. This would help the industry.
Yeah. So for me, I keep coming back. This has nothing really to do with DePIN, but I want to make a multi-sig wallet that is provisioned by your like both hardware devices, but also Web 2 logins. So like, I'm sure this already exists. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't, but like, I think security and safety for the industry is really important. I think there's a lot of people that are working on that stuff, but I think some of it is out of touch with like the mom test, right? Where we can go and we can tell this to our parents and get them to set it up without really knowing this is crypto and do it in a safe way. if my mom wants to go buy Bitcoin, she has no idea really how to do that. I can tell her to go to Coinbase or whatever, but I think when we talk about adoption and scale, I think we really need to think about other mechanisms here. In the context of DePIN in general, this is less about tech, but it's more about standards. And I think figuring out the right ways to verify and count and value revenue in DePIN networks will be really important so that we can look at two DePIN networks that are similar and decide which one is actually doing a better job. Right now, we have no way to do that actually. So like DePIN network A and DePIN network B, they might be both very similar, but one touts their TVL as like why they're the best and the other touts their supply as like the biggest. And which one of that is better? And so I think having more standards helps us mature where we can all agree on these are things that we should really be shooting for, because if we do and we succeed, now we should actually be able to get into more mainstream circles and help more folks, right? So those are two examples off the top of my head, but I'm sure I have like 100,000 more just idling in the subconscious. Yeah.
It also makes me think too, like what do you think, what companies would be best fit for you guys in terms of like partnership, for you guys maybe have complementary things you guys both offer that would be conducive to pushing the industry forward?
I think just any sort of DePIN network that has a stake that wants to help grow and create better capital markets, those are the partners that we're like looking for now. As I was telling you before, because we were Trojan horsing DeFi on Filecoin, we've rolled our own tools for the things that we need. And so we rarely depend on other things. We've been very self-sufficient, for better or for worse. And so for us, it's just about growing the customer base that we can service and help, rather than we don't really need help right now on any sort of other tangential tool, which is a blessing, honestly.
Right.
Maybe we do, and I'm just blanking, but I'll have to come back for that one then.
No worries at all. So, in terms of what you guys have next for GLIF, are there any like announcements that you guys have coming up, or announcements of an announcement that is to be coming up, or things that come to mind?
Yeah.
Like, it's just over the horizon. Keep your eyes peeled for this. Be sure to be following us on Twitter, doing all the things. And by the way, if you guys are watching on X, right above our face, you can give them a follow. And if you're on YouTube, right below in the description, you can give them a follow. So.
Yeah. Okay. So Alpha Leaks, announcements of announcements. Soon we'll announce what networks that we're going to support first. We're running a number of pilots with a few networks, and we're doing that to, like we talked about, right? Run tiny experiments before we take off a big chunk of something to work on. We're figuring the reason that we're running pilots is to get used to the tech of these new networks, the economics, just kind of play with it, get a feel for it, and then we can start to design. Because ultimately, we like to build this stuff for ourselves. So we become miners of these networks, and we also become liquidity providers. And we want to build the things that make us happy when doing those things. And so Alpha, not yet, but very soon. If you follow us on Twitter, we will be releasing a lot more information about those pilots and what we're testing. And the other, of course, a little bit further out on the horizon is the GLIF store and actually that loyalty program. For us, it makes sense to support a few networks as we roll that out, because that makes the loyalty program even better. So we're kind of developing those two things in parallel. And what else? I think that's basically it for now. The major call out is, I think personally, having been here for quite a while in crypto, you start to see narratives pop up and merge and things of that nature. And the two that I'm seeing as perfect complements for each other at a very broad level is DeFi and DePIN. And the two fit like gloves. The infrastructure in general has a lot of deficit when it comes to how much funding it has versus what it needs. And DeFi is great at raising capital. It's also great at coordinating capital and allocating resources and things 24/7 in a programmatic manner. CeFi is not a great fit for DePIN. The banks are closed on weekends, things of that nature. And so I think if you want to, if that rings a bell to you, where you're like, why aren't more people experimenting in this era? Like, this seems like an obvious play. That's why you should follow GLIF, because we're just running tons of experiments. We're broadcasting and publishing a lot of our learnings. And this is the position that we want to stay in. we don't know exactly the 5-year state of what GLIF will be like, how many networks we support or anything like that. But what we do know is that at the cornerstone of DeFi and DePIN will be GLIF, and we will definitely carve ourselves out a valuable and healthy spot. So stay tuned and follow us for more information. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'll say this. I said at the beginning as well. I really can feel the passion coming from you when you speak. And this is kind of like a call out for all. And I said this actually on Space like 2 or 3 days ago. There's a big gap for content creators and content creation to be made, high level stuff, high quality stuff. If you need to grab a camera or if you see a use a phone, but there's a big gap in the DePIN world, in the DeFi world, and in RWA. So there's like 3 industries that are sort of interlinked a little bit. And I've been saying, I'm like, we need more spokespeople. You're excellent at it. I hope you do more and more streams and spaces because you are a great representation, I think, of things being built in DePINs. And I'd love to see more of that. Like sometimes you'll go into a conversation around these things, and the conversation is a bit low energy. And I'm like, dude, this is like the cutting edge innovation in a already cutting edge industry. This is like top peak energy. Like this is what we need, and the energy is just not there. So I hope you do more of these because this is a really fun discussion for me. And I hope for people in the DePIN world, they're looking at you, taking some notes. You know, they want to connect with you because this is a great conversation.
Thanks, man. Likewise. Yeah, I'm happy to do this anytime. Anytime you want to jam real world assets, we can go down that rabbit hole too. So yeah, man.
Definitely. We'll get William on here as well. Bit of a round table at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe. He does that show.
William's always cracking good jokes. Yeah, the happy hour?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the one.
Yeah. No, I've been invited once or twice, and we always have a good time. Crazy ideas. William loves his rare steak. We got it. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, yeah. Now at least I know. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, listen, I'll turn it back over to you, John. If there's any final things you want to leave the audience with right before we wrap this bit, like I said, it's been an excellent conversation. I think if people are looking to get a bit of a deep dive on DePIN, they definitely got it, and I'm glad it came from you as well.
Hell yeah. Last thing is, I've been trying to write more and get my voice out there more like you're suggesting I do. My own team has been telling me that too. So give me a follow as well if you're interested in what you're hearing on the Space or Episode podcast today. I'm doing a lot more writing, and hold me accountable. If you haven't heard from me on Twitter, just like tweet at me, whatever. I love writing and thinking about these things. And I'd be happy to chat whenever. So thanks for your time.
Absolutely. And shout out to everyone who is watching at home. I appreciate all of you tuning in. If you enjoyed the conversation, please do repost the stream. Give John a follow. He's right there up below our faces. His account as well as the GLIF account are both up there. Be sure to give them a follow and stick around. Definitely check out their platform as well. You're definitely not going to want to miss any of that. And definitely give Wolf a follow if you enjoy conversations like this. We try and put them on every single day here. Wolf Spaces and Streams. We'll catch you guys all in the next one, fam. Take care.